Thank you, Mark, and good morning. First of all, an absolute honour to open this year's seminar. A real delight for me to be here in Birmingham, which I'm fairly confident in a few months' time will be a Premier League free zone. Aston Villa fans in the room. I don't want you to sit there thinking, wow, football, I don't like football in the way that Mark speaks. This is going to be a terrible half an hour. I'm hoping that even if you really don't like football, and maybe you do support Aston Villa, that you'll enjoy the next half an hour as I take you into a little bit of a different world, a high-pressure world where a regular guy like me, who was a failed footballer, managed to cope in some of the biggest stages in the world under acute pressure and scrutiny. And I'll give you a few ideas of how I think I was able to be successful in that respect. But first of all, I'll start with a little video to take you into the world in which I made my living for the last 12 years. So, I was lucky enough to be involved in some of the biggest games in the world. It didn't start there, though, for me. It didn't start there at all. It started somewhere much less significant, I guess, in South Yorkshire, in Rotherham, where I'm from. I don't really think that when I was about 7 or 8, I harboured ambitions to become a football ref. I mean, who would at that age? I wanted to be a World Cup winning captain for England, not realising the restrictions that being English would place on that ambition, but that's what I wanted to be. And I tried hard. I tried really hard. And the realisation struck at the age of 15 or 16 that I wasn't a very good footballer. My dad said to me, I'm probably surprised I've got a dad, you're probably thinking, but my dad said to me, Howard, you're not a very good footballer. Have you thought about becoming a football ref? Because he'd become one himself at the end of his playing days. And I said, to be honest, Dad, I am passionate about football, but I don't really want to become a ref, because when I think about football refs in my mind's eye, I think about bald old men, which is what I become some years later. But I decided to give it a go. I think what that shows is that, even if you don't have that God-given talent that you might need for your first dream, there's always other avenues and opportunities that you can look to take. And I took charge of my first game here at a place called Orgreave in South Yorkshire. In 1984, it became the scene of the biggest battle of the miners' strike. My dad was a coal miner. He was on the picket lines there, and it's about a mile from my house. I had a look at that from the hilltop as a 14-year-old and thought, quite fancy being a policeman, actually. It looked quite good fun. Sure enough, I became a policeman as well. But my dad wasn't too impressed at the time. But my first game took place on that same field 5 years after the miners' strike. There were football fields there. An under-11s game, I came off the pitch after that game, not really knowing exactly what I'd done, but got 6 or 7 handshakes from parents. And I thought to myself, maybe, just maybe, if I work hard enough for long enough, maybe I could get to a level I'd hoped to get to as a player, but in another way, within this game that I loved. And I persevered over many, many years and through the different levels and eventually made it onto the Premier League list where it became my full-time job. As a Premier League referee, I acquired some quite unique statuses, really. One of them is that I was seen as a favourite referee for Manchester United, which was a bit harsh, really, but the rumour started about this Manchester United bias after an FA Cup game against Liverpool when they awarded a penalty in the 25th second of the game to Manchester United for a brushing of a player's eyelash. Dimitar Berbatov went down 5 or 6 rolls, as they do. It looked a penalty to me at full speed. Alex Ferguson was nodding. I thought, that's good enough for me. I sent off Steven Gerrard in the same game later, and one of the Liverpool players who wasn't best pleased with my performance after Liverpool lost 1-0 that afternoon at Old Trafford, a guy called Ryan Barbel, he posted on Twitter, he probably got some help to do it, he posted on Twitter this picture of me wearing a Manchester United shirt, and this picture went viral on the internet, and people have seen it, and they make jokes about being a Manchester United supporter, and Alex Ferguson said the day I retire will cost Manchester United 16 goals a season. That's a joke and a bit tongue-in-cheek. What people don't realise is that as match officials, the thing that we hold most dear is our integrity and honesty and impartiality, and that we will make mistakes, but we do things with honesty. And when people make jokes like that, it sort of undermines those values, and eventually it starts to get on your nerves and it makes you a little bit fed up, to be honest. And not only does it get under my skin, it gets under my friends' skins who are close to me, my family. My kids hate it. My little Wayne and Rio and Cristiano. They're absolutely... It's not true. I'm also the only referee to have refereed at Buckingham Palace. This was a celebration game that Prince William put on to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the FA on his grandma's lawn, which was nice. But it was the second time that I'd been to Buckingham Palace because in 2010 I did referee the World Cup final, and I was awarded the MBE on the back of that, which probably just stands for most bookings ever in my case. But I went down to the Palace in the May of 2011 to receive the award for services to football, and this guy from Buckingham Palace came into the waiting room and said to all of us who were gathered there receiving the awards, what's going to happen is you're going to get taken from this room, you're going to get to the ballroom door, your name will be announced on the PA system, that's your cue to step forward, centre yourself on the Prince of Wales, turn to face him, bow from the neck, step up to the platform where he stood. There'll be a two-way conversation between you and him. That will come to an end. In other words, he's had enough. When he offers you his hand, shake his hand, back off, bow from the neck, turn to the right, dead easy. And I could see him taking time to chat to every recipient on a TV screen as I was waiting. And I got called through in the last group of 10. And I got to the ballroom door. Howard Webb, services to football. I thought, I can't wait to meet him. Stepped up, centred myself on the Prince, turned to face him, bowed from the neck, went to the platform, he pinned on the MBE, and he said to me, this is absolutely true. He said, services to football. So what do you do? I said, well, I'm a football referee, Your Royal Highness. I refereed the World Cup final in South Africa last year between Spain and Holland, and 50 days before that, I refereed the Champions League final between Inter Milan and Bayern Munich, becoming the first referee ever to referee those two finals in the same calendar year, sir. And he looked at me and he said, He said, very well done. And that was it. That was the extent of my interaction with Prince Charles. So, I've recently retired as a football referee. I went to the Brazilian World Cup in 2014, and I retired, and having received the MBA, I retired and took on a new role with BT Sport. Has anybody in the audience got BT Sport? 5. Good. It's much better than Sky, I promise you. I now work with these guys every week. So tonight we go to West Ham against Aston Villa, probably for another home win. And I also work with this guy. Now, I don't want to say that he's a little bit thick, but we were at Liverpool on Saturday, and there was a tight offside situation, and he came and looked at it on the screen with me, and I said, it's tight that one, Robbie, isn't it? It's a close decision. He said, yeah, it's 50-60. It's true, absolutely true. So I'm just going to take you on a little bit of a journey in the time I've got, the 20 minutes that I've got, through 2010 and the World Cup finals, which I was lucky enough to go to as England's representative. 2 million referees in the world. Big number. Many in Japan, I don't know why, and Germany, but they've got big numbers. But we've got 27,000 in this country. It's dropped from 30,000. 18 Premier League referees, and I was lucky enough to referee, become the 19th man to take charge of the World Cup final in football. There's a few things I'm going to talk about. in the time that I've got, just about how I think a regular guy who was a failed footballer from South Yorkshire was able to cope with the demands that are placed upon you at this very high level, this extremely scrutinised level. The thought of some of the things that I've done are quite amazing, really, in terms of being able to make decisions under acute pressure when you're being scrutinised. I was expected on the pitch to be perfect every single game, and yet I was also asked to improve each and every game as well. A lot of people say the best referees are the ones that are not noticed, and I would absolutely agree with that. If I could come off a game and in the newspaper it would say Howard Webb, South Yorkshire, anonymously competent, that would be absolutely fantastic. That would be as high an accolade as I could get. To be anonymously competent meant I'd done my job well. But I would fall into the trap too often of making that my objective, to be anonymously competent, to be under the radar and not seen. And the best referees, the best managers are not the ones who are not noticed. They're the ones who are seen and heard when the game needs them to be seen and heard. If I went into the game thinking, quiet game today, don't want to be in the headlines, I would generally not rise to the occasion to make a big decision. And I would be left wanting because I wasn't doing the job I'd been sent to do. And that would put me in the headlines. So to be anonymously competent is good, but you have to be prepared to be seen and heard when you need it to be seen and heard. Preparation is absolutely the key to absolutely everything that I did, I feel. It's what gave me the confidence to be able to cope in those high-pressure situations. Knowing that I had invested time to top up my personal bank account of knowledge and skills. Every time I read the laws of the game, every time I did a physical training session, every time that I watched a video or spoke to my teammate, my sports psychologist, my fitness coach, I was investing in my personal bank. Because sometimes, on some games, I had to draw loads out of that account. It was a type of game where I would have to dig so deep, and other games, I never touched it, never touched the balance, because it wasn't the sort of game that needed it. But I needed to know that that account was there so that, if I had to draw upon it, I could. 2010, I was selected to go to the World Cup in South Africa as England's representative after refereeing for 21 years through the different levels. And I knew that South Africa was at altitude, and I knew I was going down to that tournament with 28 other referees from around the world who wanted to get to the ultimate game, the World Cup final. And I thought, what sets me apart? What can give me an edge over those guys? So I did some altitude training at Sheffield Hallam University, 10 sessions at 3,000 feet in their chamber. So 3,000 metres, sorry, in their chamber. Now, maybe it made no difference whatsoever, but I did the altitude training and got to the final. 4 weeks before I was due to fly down to South Africa, having been on a selection programme for 2 years, and that was my aim, to get to the World Cup, I received a phone call from UEFA to say, Howard, we've selected you for this year's European Cup final, the Champions League final in Madrid. The Bernabeu Stadium, the home of Real Madrid, a cathedral of football, a game played between two giants of European football, Inter Milan and Bayern Munich, and this game came as a bit of a threat because this was only 10 days before I was due to fly to South Africa to take charge of games there, and I knew the world would see this match, the biggest game in club football, and if I did well, fantastic. If I did badly, if something went wrong, and let me tell you, things can go wrong no matter how well prepared you are. Sometimes shit happens, and you can look yourself in the mirror and think I did everything I could, but there's little you can control. I used to focus on everything that I could control to make sure that I was prepared as possible. This was the Bernabeu Stadium is a little bit different to most of the stadiums. The dressing rooms are set quite high up in the stand. So instead of just walking out of the dressing room and along the tunnel onto the pitch, you come out onto a landing out of your dressing room door at the top of 23 steps. And at 8:15 that night, I pressed the bell for the teams to come out of their dressing room, and I came out of the dressing room onto the landing, and I saw the red and white striped players of Bayern Munich on this side and the black and blue striped players of Inter Milan on this side. And then another small door opened, and out came these young kids, 23 young kids aged about 8 or 9. And 11 were dressed in Bayern Munich kit and 11 in Inter Milan kit. And there was one little Spanish lad aged about 8, looking ever so pissed off, wearing a referee's kit. And he turned up that night hoping to be a player escort for Wesley Sneijder or Samuel Eto'o, one of the world's great footballers. And he was told on arrival he was going to be the referee escort. Shortest of short straws. Or so I thought. And so I saw this picture, and I could actually see there's 2 little linesmen as well. I mean, that's an even shorter straw, isn't it? But we walked along these 23 steps. I held his hand, and we got to the bottom, and the light got brighter, the noise got louder, went onto the pitch, and there was a podium just off the pitch there, the black one on the right-hand side with nothing on it. And as I got closer, from within, up came the European Cup, the big silver trophy, the big ears that I've seen lifted by so many heroes of world football, and I could see my face in the European Cup. I thought, wow, unbelievable things happen to really regular people when you've got a passion for something and you see where that passion can take you and what sets you apart, and then you have your self-belief and perseverance, because at least 10 times in my career I've come home from games and thrown my kit bag in the corner and thought, that's it, I'm packing up. I've had a difficult game, I've had some criticism, there's easier things to do, but I've gone back and picked my bag back up each time. And to be honest, as I walked past that trophy, I was so glad I picked the bag back up each time and not left it in the kitchen corner and never gone back for it, because if I had done, I'd have been watching the game at home on TV instead of achieving what I'd hoped to achieve at the very outset. So amazing things really do happen to regular people, and this game was a great game where I could be anonymously competent. Nothing really happened. I went up and received my brown envelope, my trophy from Michel Platini. It's a joke. And Sepp Blatter wasn't there. And I flew to Johannesburg on the crest of a wave, knowing that this was an opportunity to show everybody how good we were. It was a threat, because it could have gone wrong, and if it had done, we wouldn't have been involved in games in South Africa, but this game was an opportunity to show the world how good we could be. And we flew to South Africa absolutely flying. Now, preparation's key. Teamwork is absolutely crucial. People think that what I did on the pitch was an isolated job, me on my own. I was a little bit like Hong Kong Phooey, #1 super guy. You're all of an age that can remember Hong Kong Phooey. Hong Kong Phooey got all the credit for getting the crimes and catching the criminal, but actually there was this little thing helping him behind. I don't know, it was a cat or something, I don't know. We used to like give him the clues. I think Inspector Gadget and Danger Mouse had a similar thing. I was the same. These guys would be behind the scenes talking to me on my radio all the time, giving me clues to get the right answer. They got very little credit. They never even got an MBE, unfortunately. I did promise them that I wouldn't take it unless we all got one, and then the letter turned up, and I forgot that conversation. So, but these guys are unbelievable what they do. These are the two guys who work with me all the time, who were seen in the eyes of the world as just linesmen. These were the reason I got the World Cup final. These were simply the reason I got the World Cup final, because these are so good at what they do. And because we had an ethic of, it doesn't matter really who gets the credit, as long as we get the decision right, we were able to achieve as a team. This picture tells a million words. This was an exercise that we did in South Africa on the training ground, where you had to run along with your flag and you had to change direction at pace, having made an offside decision, flag up or not, and then change and go the other way. These were one behind the other. Look at the symmetry of the feet and the hands and the flags and the heads. This is turning at pace. This stood out. FIFA saw this, the organisers, and thought, wow, these guys absolutely mean business. This is a really small exercise, and this is a really small detail, but it spoke absolute volumes. This is why we got the final, because of this sort of attitude, this sort of togetherness throughout our time in South Africa. So we've gone down there, we're performing okay, things are going well. Sometimes pressure comes on you from other sources about which you don't have any control. And there was an example in South Africa halfway through the tournament, because England played Germany in the round of 16. And we'd had a couple of games which had gone well. We'd been appointed to a game the day after England played Germany, a game between Brazil and Chile. And just before half-time, we were watching this game in our hotel before we flew down to our next game in Johannesburg. And Lampard hit a shot which hit the crossbar with the score at 2-1, bounced over the line and bounced out to make it 2-2, or so we thought. But the referee team never saw it, and there was no goal line technology, and the play was allowed to continue. And it was clearly over the line. Well, some people argued it wasn't, but it was clearly over the line. And this created huge controversy, because England lost the game, and the media went absolutely crazy on the back of this. And this was the press conference that we held just after that game. I was surrounded by 2 hours by the media wanting my opinion on different aspects of technology, for example. And as you can see, that was a real pressure situation. I had to make sure that I'd got all of the FIFA lines in my head. I could have gone home by saying something wrong, by something I said that wasn't related to anything I did on the pitch, or anything that I made a mistake on. So again, way out of your comfort zone. FIFA put us out of our comfort zone all of the time. We had a strange situation in South Africa where all the fans blew these horns, these vuvuzelas, which created this strange sound which was deafening in the stadiums. So you couldn't even hear yourself speak on the radio system to your colleagues. Every single day that we trained in the training ground just there that you can see, we trained at 1,000 decibels for 3 hours to this noise. Just to put us out of our comfort zone. So when we went onto the pitch, we had prepared ourselves so that we would be accustomed to that noise. So even though there was something that's quite different, we were able to cope with this strange phenomenon, which we wouldn't find anywhere else. But thinking ahead about what's going to put you out of your comfort zone and preparing and dealing with it is what, again, made the difference. Decision making is everything that we do. I don't think you see anybody who's successful in life who is either one, not passionate about what they do, or two, isn't prepared to make a big decision. Isn't prepared to be seen and heard when they need to be seen and heard. Hence the reason when I go into games not wanting to make a big decision, I usually cock it up. So you have to make a big decision. You have to be prepared to not only have an opinion, but actually act on that. Everybody in the stadium's got an opinion. There's only one person, 3 people, who have to show their opinion publicly, share it by making a decision. And that's the match officials. It takes a bit of courage to do that. It does. But you draw upon the fact that you know the laws of the game at your fingertips. You can't phone a friend or look on the internet. You have to know it absolutely at your fingertips, so it's there for recollection straight away. You have to have total trust in your team, and you have to take advantage of the time that you've got. In my world, that time might have been 1.5 or 2 seconds. But the big thing I learned throughout my entire career is trust your gut instinct. Howard, trust your gut instinct. That's the way that you'll get to the best answer 9 times, 10 times out of 10 usually. On the odd occasion it might let you down, but my gut instinct was really, really a strong force in making decisions. I'll show you a clip of a game from South Africa between Brazil and Egypt where I didn't take the time I needed to. I had a bit of time and I went too quickly, but then I trusted my gut instinct. I watched the reaction of people. I got better by learning how to replay reactions over a period of time, and it led me to the right decision.
2008 game against Austria. Webb's trying to find some room. It's swept in towards goal, blocked on the line. Handball is the appeal. Corner is the decision. El Mohammadi is down, holding his face. That's how he says he blocked it. And what's Howard Webb going to do here? He's got some sorting out to do. Al-Hadari is calling for some treatment to be administered to his defender. Howard Webb is taking instruction from the touchlines here. You can see him talking on his microphone. Brazil are still absolutely adamant that they should have a penalty here, and they should. They should. It was saved on the line by El Mohammadi, who then tried to con everybody by saying it struck his face. That's why he's still down, but Howard Webb has it sus finally. Red card El Mohammadi, penalty Brazil. Chance to win it. Egypt can complain, but the English refs got it right. Don't think he got a clear view at first. But however he's arrived at the decision, it is a good one.
To be honest, I guessed, really. It just shows how there is a window of opportunity where you need to take information in. If I'd have just waited a second more, I'd have come to the right decision. But I reacted too quickly. Last minute of the game, big game, the ball hits the defender on the line. I'm not exactly sure where it's hitting, but I know it's somewhere here, down here, and it goes out for a corner, and I go, corner, instead of just taking that little bit of time. But then the gut instinct kicked in, and I saw El Mohammadi, the player. He was on the floor holding his face. I knew that the ball hit him somewhere here. Not here. Cheating bastard. Sorry, but I knew, and again, just by reading reactions, being good at reading reactions, and learning how to communicate and how to deal with different people, I know that certain players need to be nursed. They need to be cajoled through the game. Other players, so that's like Joey Barton, he needs to be cajoled through the game. Somebody like Mario Balotelli, the Italian, you've got to ignore him really, because you know you're not going to have the last word. So you're better off keeping your distance. He can't argue on his own. He probably could, actually. But again, it's knowing how to react to people. It's really, really key. And just giving yourself the available time and trusting the gut instinct. If you don't know the answer, trust your gut instinct. It's a good guide. Reflection analysis is something that we had to do all the time. at FIFA tournaments, we would have to stand at the front of the auditorium and look at our decisions in some detail, the wrong ones, the right ones. It was quite an uncomfortable place to be. Recalling what happened, trying to be neutral about it, which is hard because you attach yourself to the decision. You remember what you saw at the time. You remember why you gave the call. So you attach yourself to it and you don't want it to be exposed. But it's key that you are neutral and you look at what you did well as well. You'll see golfers, they'll hit a bad shot and then they'll do it again. They ought to be doing it again when they hit a good shot, really. You know, just to get that feeling again of a good shot. On the Premier League, we're evaluated like this. Every situation, every coming together is logged and recorded, and green or red means correct or incorrect. A lot of people will only look at the red entries, the bad ones. It's so important that you look at the green ones as well, so that you re-emphasise what you did well in the game. Otherwise, we could fill ourselves with negativity all of the time. And then communication as well. I was appointed to the game Brazil-Chile the day after the England game against Germany, and we all know what's on the screen, but I was under pressure because FIFA said, right, England have gone out to this big controversy. Whatever you do, don't cock it up tonight, Howard. Don't cock this game up tonight against Brazil and Chile. We can't afford another big mistake. More pressure through something I had no control over. I did some preparation. I spoke to this guy. You won't recognise him. He's an Argentinian referee. I wanted some advice about dealing with South American football culture. Brazil against Chile. This was new territory for me. I had to prepare for this properly. I spoke to him. He knows South American football culture. He also refereed the World Cup final in 2006, so he knows refereeing as well. And I saw him, spoke to him, he gave me some advice about body language, different body language that you can use that will be effective with South Americans compared with Northern Europeans. I took on board the advice. I used it. The game went like a dream. He saw me the day after. That's him speaking to me. He said, Howard, he said, that's fantastic. He said, but I've got one piece of advice after seeing the game last night. He said, when you show a yellow card, you're showing it like that. I thought, how else can you show a yellow card? He said, this is a piece of yellow plastic that communicates to the world that this player is being cautioned. But when you caution a player, it's your eyes that send the message to the player that this is the line. So show your yellow card like this and maintain eye contact. And that was really good advice, because in my next game in the final, I had 14 opportunities to practice that technique. Because having not got another game after the round of 16, I was appointed to the World Cup final, which was the pinnacle, of course, to get the World Cup final. And I just want to very quickly, in closing, just show a couple of videos from that game, which I think you might find interesting, even if you're not a football fan. One is the walkout, and then there's also the half-time interval. And we'll start with the walkout.
Holland or Spain? Your commentators for the final of the 2010 World Cup are Mark Lawrenson and Guy Mowbray.
Thanks, Gary. So this is it. These players stand on the brink of history at the end of an historic African World Cup.
And I've got butterflies in my tummy the size of bats, to be honest, but it doesn't show because I've learned how to cope with that. I've learned how to reflect on positive performances from before. I've learned how to trust my team, draw upon that personal bank. I know I've got a big bank account, I can draw upon that. And I deliver games well most of the time. And I don't lose energy worrying about things I can't control. I think what will be. I've done everything that I can. And it's a really tough game. It's the hardest game I've ever taken charge of. Physical it was, with many, many difficult situations to judge upon. And there was a film being made by FIFA called Match 64, recording, cataloguing certain people who were involved in the final, and I was one of them. And I knew this film was being made, but I forgot the camera was in the corner of the dressing room at half-time, and having had one of the hardest first halves in front of 990 million people on TV, I think you can see that the stress on my face is showing. I don't know, it's not you lot, but that's tough first half. Tough first half. I don't think I've anywhere to go, you know? There's anywhere to go with it. You've got to keep doing the job.
Just confirm the detail I've got.
Yep.
Orange, 9,
Yep.
6,
Yep.
and 8.
Yes.
Blue, 5 and 15.
I've named them all as well.
Yeah, it's Van Persie,
Yeah.
Van Bommel,
Yeah.
De Jong,
De Jong, yeah.
Puyol, and Ramos.
Feel good, yeah? Yes. Feel good, yeah. It's not, physically it's not difficult, it's more difficult mentally to... It's not beautiful, is it? It's not beautiful. Oh, we just got to do our job. Just do our job. And that sounds a bit wet, doesn't it? But do you know something? That is absolutely what I was feeling. I wasn't thinking about making a good documentary. I'd forgot about the camera was there. So that's what I felt. Just do our job. Do the job we've been sent there to do. Have the courage to be seen and heard if you need to be. And we got to the end of the game in sort of like reasonable shape. I wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But if I had lost my self-belief halfway through the game, as I had done in other games previously, in years gone by, the ones I'd learnt from, I'd have lost control of that game. So keep your self-belief. Take good advice from people around you. Trust the gut instinct. Draw upon all that preparation and use your passion for what you're doing. And I think, by and large, it'll get you to where you want to get to. This game ended with 1 red card for a Dutch player. And a guy called Iniesta scored the winning goal with 3 minutes to go, which led to quite a bit of disappointment and frustration on behalf of the Dutch. But to be honest, holidays in Spain have always been better than holidays in Holland for me. So, c'est la vie. No, I'm joking, but of course, you try to empathise with people. You try not to forget the position that they're in as well, having just missed out on making history in their country. As Casillas lifted the trophy, I decided to leave the pitch feeling quite down about the type of game it had been, and I went back up this steep sloping tunnel into the dressing room area. But before I did, I just looked over towards the left-hand side of the stadium for my dad, who'd gone down to the stadium to watch. He'd flown down from England, and I couldn't see him, but where he was sitting in the section of the stadium, there was an England flag hanging over the balcony of the stadium, St George's flag, white background, red cross, and in the 4 corners, in big black marker pen, were written the words, "Can't play, can ref." And I don't know to this day if he meant me personally or English people in general. I don't know, but so with all the things, with all the preparation, teamwork, performing under pressure, decision making, reflecting on my performances, and of course being able to communicate effectively, I was able to negotiate that final. I think even more important are having a passion for what you do, seeing where that passion can take you and how hard you're prepared to work to set yourself apart, keeping your self-belief when others are trying to knock you. That happens in my line of work all the time. Persevering when you throw your bag in the corner, intending to leave it there because something's gone wrong, but then picking it back up each time. And having the courage to put your dreams above the fears of failure. There were easier places to be that night than in the tunnel before that game, knowing that nearly 1 billion people would be watching. But you've got to have the courage to put your dreams above the fears of failure. And hopefully, to lead you to where you want to get to. It's been an absolute delight to be able to open this conference this morning. Thank you for letting me waffle on about my life and insight into my world, which is something quite different, I guess. I'm honoured and privileged to have been here, and I really genuinely hope you enjoy the rest of this event, and I'm sure you'll enjoy Marshall, who's the next speaker, who I've heard is absolutely superb down there. So thank you very much. Have a great day.